Hello and welcome everybody. This is Mr. Muhammad speaking, and this is the first session in my new series.
EST in a nutshell.
Don't worry about the name of the test because you will find different names actually for the same test. For example, in EST test, you'll find the name of this test literacy 1. In SAT, it is writing and language. ACT, its name would be English. But don't worry about these names because you need the same skills to be able to pass these tests. Let's start. The first thing you have to know to pass this test is to know how to spot and fix errors. How to do that? To do that, you have to know more and more about sentence structure or the basics. Let's start by talking about clauses and phrases. If this is the first time to listen to these words, clause and phrase, don't worry, it's very easy. Of course, all of you know the English words. Like, for example, here we have the word clause. So clause itself is a word. Okay, so for each word, you have to know its meaning. Of course, a part of a speech, is it a noun or a verb? For example, here, in this example, the word clause is a noun. The word phrase also is a noun. So what's the meaning of these words, of these two nouns? Let's start by the phrase. A phrase is a group of words without a subject-verb component. It means you have to have more than one word, not only one. For example, here, best friend. How many words? Best is a word, and friend is another word. So we said best friend. Two words together. If I want to talk about the word best, I would say that best is one word, consists of four letters, B-E-S-T. Okay, so what is best? Best is an adjective. So I'm going to describe my friend by saying he's my best friend. So here, best friend, we call this one noun phrase. Okay, so a phrase, as I said, is a group of words without subject-verb component. Can you find any subject here? Best friend, actually, you will not find. Can you find any verb? No, we don't find. Look at the second one. Was working. Oh, teacher, you said that you will not find a verb and you will not find a subject, but I can't find a verb here. Was working is a verb. So is it right or wrong? Yeah, be careful. We said what? We said you will not find subject, the verb component. It means a subject and its verb. But subject only, actually any noun can be a subject. Friend can be a subject. So it can be, but you will not find subject to verb component. I mean that you will not find the verb and its subject. Like, for example, in the first one, best friend. What did your best friend do? Okay, so if you said, my best friend did something, it would be here not a phrase. Because you have my friend and you have a verb, did. Let's go on. We have another example here of a phrase, very, very pretty. Okay, so very pretty is another example. As you can see, two words don't have a subject and its verb. Okay, really slowly, another example. In the bin, another example. So, Mr., you said that more than one word is a phrase. I think you got that point. But what about these words here? The first one, we have a noun phrase. And the second one, verb phrase. That's the third one, adjective phrase. And so do we have different types of phrases? Actually, a phrase acts like one part of a speech. Every time you have a noun, you have noun phrase. You have a verb phrase. Adjective, adjective phrase, and so on. Okay? So, for example, the first one, the noun phrase, best friend. Best friend, I want to talk about my friend. But best is adjective to describe it. So together can act like that. Do the same job in a sentence like the noun. Actually, you're going to talk about all types of phrases later on. Don't worry, but today I want you only to understand what is a phrase, what is a clause. Okay, so phrase, group of words without subject to verb component. Let's go to the clause. What is a clause? Clause, a group of words. Also say no, be careful. That time it contains a subject and a verb. Okay, so let's have a look to this example. I went to school. Very simple one. Where is the subject? Let's circle it. I here. This is the subject. Okay. Where is the verb? Went. Yes, very good. So I went to school. So in this one, actually, I have the subject, I, and I have the verb. So every time you have a subject and a verb, not any verb, it's verb. So who went? I. So the verb is for this subject. Every time you have that, you have a clause. But Mr. Also, I can find actually, I don't know what is this word. Here, there's a word which I don't know, and there is another one before the word clause. The same question. Do we have different types of clauses? Of course, yes. The first one, we call it independent clause. Independent clause makes sense on its own as a sentence. So if we want to rename an independent clause, we can say it is a sentence. Because actually it makes sense. I went to school. You can understand something. It's clear. So the independent clause is a sentence. Yes, that is right. So what about the dependent clause? Dependent clause actually contains a subject and its verb also, but it does not make sense. Look at that example, the underlined one here. Although I wasn't feeling well. Okay, so if we said, although I wasn't feeling well. So what happened? I don't know. I can't understand. So look at this one here. You find I, the subject, and also have a verb. Okay, wasn't feeling. So have subject and verb. But the problem here that I started my sentence with a conjunction, with a subordinator. Subordinators like although, like because, since, okay? All these words can change an independent clause to a dependent clause. Dependence, it means that it depends on another sentence. If I said, although I wasn't feeling well, I'm stopped. So you will ask me, what happened? So what? So you feel like, complete your thought. I can't understand what you said. Although I wasn't feeling well, what happened? I went to school. So to make this one a sentence, I have to add an independent clause to it, or a sentence. If you want to call it a sentence, no problem. In this case, you will create a type of sentence which you call complex sentence. You have two parts, two clauses, one independent and one dependent. The first one depends on the other one. Although I wasn't feeling well, I went to school. I think this one is a very good start to you to differentiate between a clause and a phrase. I hope you got these points. Let's go on. Now we have two other words, fragments and run-ons. As I've told you today, we will start by knowing how to spot an error, So we're gonna talk about errors. Here we have two errors, fragments and run-ons. Let's talk about each one, and at the end of the session, I'm going to give you some questions to answer. As I've told you, a complete sentence must have both subject and verb and express a complete thought. Independent clause. We talked about it before, maybe a minute. If any one of these elements is missing, the sentence is a fragment. You can recognize fragment because the sentence will not make sense as written. There are some examples in the table below. Look at the table. Look at this example. Ran a marathon. Who ran a marathon? I don't have a subject. So it is not a sentence. It's a fragment. The other one, he said, Lola marathon. Lola a marathon. So also here, you don't have a verb. You have the subject and you don't have the verb. To correct this sentence and make it an independent clause, you have to add the verb. Look here, said Lola ran a marathon. Now we have the subject, Lola, and we have the verb, ran, and also we have the complement to complete the thought. Lola ran a marathon. I can understand something. So if you have an element that's missing, like a subject or a verb, it's a fragment. It's an error. Also, if you have the subject and its verb, but you don't have complete thought. This is, we actually talked about that before a minute, and we said that this type of clause is a dependent clause. Look at this example here. While Lola ran a marathon. So what happened? Adding the word while changed the sentence into a fragment, or it changed an independent clause into a dependent clause. And in this case, it is not a sentence, and it is one of the errors that you have to know how to spot and how to fix. How to fix this one? It's very easy. I'm gonna add independent clause, like here. I said, while Lola ran a marathon, her friends cheered for her. So now what happened? While Lola ran a marathon, that her friends cheered for her. In this case, I could fix that type of error.